We get to that point. She's so ready.
Ready.
Before that, I want to get your calls on this. Should we renationalise the Royal Mail? 0207 862 2222 is the number. Give us a ring. When the Royal Mail was privatised 10 years ago, we were promised it would be the answer to its problems. We thought it had problems then. It would help it to modernise, but now we're seeing the service fail to meet its targets, the price of a stamp go through the roof, and in the latest news, there's talk of delaying NHS appointment letters and parking fine notices by an extra day. But is the Royal Mail fail just down to email? Would renationalisation, putting the Royal Mail back in public hands, provide the answer? Or maybe just delay the inevitable? Is it just the way it's going? Is it time to put the Royal Mail back in public hands? Marvyn, what do you reckon?
Please. Look, I've seen how the country has been run for the last 13 years, and I would not give them anything else to look after at this particular point. I think privatisation is such a skill, to bring it back into hands is such a... we just don't have it. And I feel like for us, the most important thing is how do we adjust our communication services? I fundamentally believe we should just have a mandated email that is registered and we get some of these communications just via email. Why are we sending pieces of paper around the world or around the country for basic communication like car fines and hospital notices?
So you're saying that email we can trust that's verified
email
is actually the way we should go. Maybe we are going to go.
All formal communication go through that. And I appreciate China isn't particularly advert for many things, but I do know that they have platforms and apps that everyone has to have and use for communication, and there's complete value in doing so.
Don't we then, I mean, if we lose the mail, there's a huge demographic that still relies on mail that is not tech savvy. There are people in their 70s, 80s and beyond that actually choose the Royal Mail as their method of communication from their doctor for exactly these purposes.
But the transition is happening. So, like, even if you think about someone who's 60 years old, they have lived a majority of their adult life with the internet still necessarily being active. So there are people who cannot do it. There are still some, but I think the transition needs to start happening. We need to start getting ready in advance so we can start phasing out some of the more laborious ways that we do very simple things like communicating health notices. That should go to my phone through a formal app and I should be able to get an update rather than sending all this letter and paper around. Environment.
Lynn May, back in public hands.
I don't know. I think you would have to take a look at, like, the legality of it. One of the, as you know, unsavoury part of my jobs is unfortunately having to serve notice of seeking possessions when it comes to the pre-action protocol before eviction. And
so this is in your job in housing?
This is in my job in housing, for people that fail to pay their rent. Now, if we were to just say in email, it would be very easy to say, well, I didn't get that. And, you know, when a notice of seeking possession is served, it's a legal factor that is required that it's done by post. Now, you're right. The problem with nationalisation versus privatisation, I'm actually an advocate for privatisation in many different organisations or fields, but only when there is healthy competition which challenges the businesses. The problem with the Royal Mail is there is nothing to challenge them, therefore it's not healthy competition. And as we can see, even within my job, at first, people would tell me, you know, I'd go to court and they'd say, oh, well, I didn't get it. And I thought, well, yeah, you're pulling a fast one. But then I was subjected to that. I've had parking tickets myself, and I don't receive them.
The thing is, it's a huge structure, the Royal Mail, and it's doing a fraction of the work that it used to have to do. What you're talking about is a very niche application to keep that structure there, to have it publicly owned, just to keep it for that particular purpose.
I don't know. If we look at what Marvyn said with regards to, like, healthcare, if we look at, you know, letters from teachers, if we look at across the board, those really important letters, I don't know about you, but there are so many people that, you know, especially not just older people, you might miss an email. It could go into your junk. It could go into your spam.
I think this is what we're talking about, evolving. When you understand the use of something, you prioritise it in a different way. And I think, for me, stuff that are kind of constant notices, like when I went into my post box the other day and I went through most of it was just stuff that I get via text anyway. I get notifications, I get reminders for different things. So it just feels like a waste for me. But I also just think, as a part of this country, investing the public funds into this structure any further is a terrible idea. Like, please stop using our money for things that are going to become obsolete in the near future. So it's just like not worth doing.
I mean, is this part of, I mean, we're looking at a general election. A lot of people are talking about Labour coming in. You might expect from a Labour government that there would be, you know, they've already talked about the rail service, looking at private operators there. Is this what we're going to see leading up to the election? More and more of the services which have been privatised, everyone's going, hey, how about that one? Do you think that's
well,
part
we
of
know
it?
historically, like, Labour generally is for bringing things back in-house.
The old Labour.
Well, maybe, yeah. Keir's a bit different, right? Keir's a bit different. But I think, look, it's very simple. Was it working better before? Yes, it was. It's not working right now, especially when it comes to letters. There's post office now that they're just hoarding the letters because there's no incentive to deliver the mail.
There were 20 million letters a year before. Now there are 7 million, I think this is right. So we're not where we were back in, you know, 2012.
Honestly, we should be trying to work towards zero
before we actually decide that.
We'll take some calls anyway, see what the world out there thinks. Sandra in Shropshire, is it time to renationalise the Royal Mail?
Yeah, well, I think it is, because my dad was a postman for 30-odd years, and everybody knew there was a time and the post was delivered by that. And he, you know, they always knew that my dad was coming at a certain time. I'm still waiting for a very important letter from the Department of Work and Pensions. It's a form I've got to fill in, and I still haven't received it.
And do you know what? What Lynn May was saying there about that reliability, you know it's gone through the letterbox. We have lost a lot of that. Actually, people could use as an excuse, well, you know what the Royal Mail's like these days, it's not arrived. That would be equally valid these days, wouldn't it, Sandra?
Well, yeah, but, you know, I'm an honest person, and I ring them up and I say, look, I haven't received it. You know, I can understand with the Christmas rush and everything, but that's gone now, and they should be back to normal.
However,
they're just not bothered.
But Sandra, you know, we're not living in the same world we were possibly when your dad was a postman. There isn't the bulk there. There isn't the commercial incentive, if you like. It's not going to make money. So we'll end up using tax money to support the Royal Mail. Are you prepared to have that happen?
Well, no, I don't think we should pay extra taxes. But the thing is, something's got to be done, because the postmen have got it cushy. My dad used to have one bag of mail on the front of his bicycle and another one on his back. And he used to deliver all that. They've got vans now that they drop off the mail for them. So there's no excuse.
Yeah.
So, Sandra, I'm pretty sure the post people of this modern era will tell you that they definitely do not have it easier. They have very, very strict targets. They have how much time they can rest monitored, how fast they walk and move is monitored. And so it makes it almost impossible
the letters aren't coming, are they?
Well,
saying
because
this,
it's financially inefficient system. That's not to do with the post
Sandra's
people.
waiting for her letter from the DWP. It hasn't arrived.
I don't think there's any suggestion that Royal Mail workers are slacking. I think from the ones I've spoken to, they're having as hard a time as they ever are. Staff shortages mean they are working longer shifts and struggling to get stuff out in the days that they're given.
Yeah.
I want to hear from John. He's in Nottinghamshire. John, you work for Royal Mail, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I worked for about 15 years up till 8 months ago. I left the company. It was complete chaos.
Okay,
complete disillusion with the company.
So how much of that would you put down to privatisation? And, you know, is there a comparison? Because so much has changed since it was a national organisation, publicly run.
The privatisation there was an agenda when they were privatised. And every week at work, every couple of days, we have an internal TV service called RMTV, Royal Mail Television. And there would be the directors on there saying, parcels are our future, mail is dying out. Mail doesn't matter. Prioritise parcels. And this was drummed into us every day. And sometimes mail would be left in the fittings for 2 weeks at a time. People would come in and complain they hadn't had their mail. The managers would invoke proceedings against the postman. They would discipline the postman, saying, you haven't delivered it. The very next day, they'd be briefing again, don't take the mail out, take the parcels. And it's all down, basically what's happened with Royal Mail is there are some huge investors in Royal Mail. They just want it to be a parcels company, and they want to sell off the massive estate of Royal Mail, which is worth tens of billions of pounds. They want to sell off all that, move it into a large parcel depots, remote, out of town, much cheaper, and cream off the profits for the big shareholders. And that's what I mean, even the other day you saw the regulator was actually saying that the Universal Service Order should be amended. Now, the regulator should be regulating, not on the side of Royal Mail trying to reduce their obligations. So that regulator was completely out of order.
I'm interested to know, John, do you think there would be a path? Would it make sense to put it back into public hands? Because it feels like so much damage has been done.
It has. So much damage has been done, but what's the alternative if you don't have a postal service? What happens when maybe there's, I don't know, in the future we go to war, we don't go to war, there's a cyber attack, all the email goes down. Where are we then as a country? What have we left as a backup when there's you can't get NHS letters, you can't get government letters? What is our backup position? And maybe privatising might mean putting a bit more money in, but it would certainly mean that you would have a regular postal service that could be relied on at any time.
The stories that people came to you with at the depot about the way that the lack of delivery had affected their lives, what sort of things were you hearing about?
Well, exactly what you're going through now. I mean, the classic would be a doctor's appointment or an appointment waiting for a letter from their specialist. They're waiting for their credit card because they've had it stolen and they need to pay bills. And that is completely ignored. It is just completely, you must take parcels. Letters don't matter. Our future is parcels. And when even the chief executive was in front of the parliament and he was questioned about that, he blatantly turned around and said, no, this isn't true. But yet we were receiving on Royal Mail TV, his picture telling us to prioritise parcels. So it is an agenda to run down Royal Mail. But it shouldn't be. It should be a national service that we can all be proud of. We all rely on it.
Well, John, thank you so much, sort of bearing witness to what's happening, what happened there while you were there. Just to say, we know Royal Mail in the past have said there is no policy to prioritise parcels over letters. Clearly, what you're saying works against that. Thank you for calling in. Robin's in Gloucestershire. Should we put the Royal Mail back in public hands, Robin? What do you think?
Well, something's got to happen. But John, actually, that last caller, it's astounding. Load of information there. Also, can I just, because you said it all, really, management and then lying, But what I would like to mention is that this thing about elderly, or over 60 or whatever, not being able to deal with modern communication. I haven't got a problem with it. I'm 80, okay? I don't have a problem with it, and I do get tired of being written off over a certain age where I wouldn't be able to manage with email or any other, It's just slightly, it's more than patronising.
Okay.
But I do think, coming back to something's got to happen, and I think nationalising.
Do you think we lose something, though, with Royal Mail, with letter deliveries? You're saying, you can handle your affairs, and maybe we underestimate people, as you say, 70s, 80s, and their adaptability. Do they really need the letters, or is it just that societal thing where we're used to that routine and we like it?
I would still miss letters. Always, I did send a birthday card in last August to somebody, and they never received it. But I would still miss the deliverers.
You and a lot of people. Thank you so much for your call, Robin. It's obviously a story we're going to keep covering, keep coming back to see what happens to this Universal Service Agreement, whether it's something they can continue to honour, and indeed what will happen to the Royal Mail long term. Thank you for all